3 years ago, the man I thought I would spend my life with told me that my body was a life sentence of loneliness, that no man would ever truly love a fat girl. Yesterday at a friend's party, we ran into him. He watched with a look of stunned, hollow-eyed disbelief as my husband wrapped his arms around me from behind, kissed the top of my head, and whispered in my ear, "You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." Hi everyone, and welcome back. My name is Grace. I'm 29 years old, and I'm a woman who is living a life I was once told was impossible for someone like me. I'm a graphic designer, a hiker, a dog mom, and most importantly, a deeply, profoundly loved wife. But the story of how I found this peace is a story about surviving a curse. This is a secret I have held onto so tightly for so long, because it was the most intimate and vicious kind of wound. It's one thing to be told you're not pretty enough or smart enough or successful enough, but to be told that you are, by your very nature, unlovable. Oh my gosh, that is a poison of a different caliber. It's a curse that the person you trust most in the world whispers into your ear, and it takes root in the deepest parts of your soul. For years I lived under the shadow of that curse. I believed it. With every fiber of my being, I believed that my body was a barrier to the one thing every human being craves: true, unconditional love. I looked in the mirror, and I didn't just see a fat girl. I saw a woman who was destined to be alone. You start to see every rejection, every awkward date, every lonely night as proof that the curse is real. You ask yourself the most soul-destroying questions. Just because I'm fat, am I not worthy of a life partner? Do I deserve to have my hope for a future systematically dismantled? Was he right about me all along? And in the echoing silence of your broken heart, the only answer you can hear is yes. But this is not a story about a curse. This is a story about how a curse is broken. It's not about a magic wand or a fairy tale prince. It's about the slow, painful, and glorious work of learning to love yourself so fiercely that the curse simply starves to death. It's about the moment I realized that his words were not a prophecy about me, but a confession about his own empty, incapable heart. This is the story of how I stopped searching for a man to love me and started building a life that I loved, and how, in the middle of that beautiful life, love found me anyway. The journey was years of hard, internal work. It was a war fought not in a gym or a boardroom, but on long solitary walks, in quiet therapy sessions, and in the terrifying vulnerability of learning to be kind to myself. There were so many setbacks, so many moments where the ghost of his words would rise up and try to pull me back into the darkness. But the flicker of hope, the tiny, stubborn belief that he might be wrong, was a light I refused to let him extinguish. I know, with a certainty that makes my heart ache, that someone watching this right now is living under a similar curse. Words that someone who is supposed to love you branded onto your soul. Words that you hear every time you look in the mirror. I see you. I was you. And I'm telling you this story as proof that curses can be broken. Before we go back in time to the man who cast the spell, I need to ask you for your support. If this story is already touching that part of you that knows what it's like to feel unlovable, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support is a powerful counterspell. It's a collective voice that says we are all worthy, we are all lovable, and it gives me the strength to share the intimate, painful, and ultimately triumphant truth of my journey. Okay. Oh, let's go back. Let's go back to a girl who was about to be told she was destined to be alone. My story with Ethan began in college. It was my first serious relationship, the kind of all-consuming, defining love that only happens when you are young and still figuring out who you are. I was a shy, creative art student. He was a handsome, ambitious, pre-law student. I was fat, and he, in the beginning, seemed to find it charmingly unconventional. Our life together felt like a beautiful, bohemian dream. We lived in a small, cheap apartment off campus, filled with my paintings, his textbooks, and the constant smell of garlic bread. I was the nurturer, the heart of our little world. My love for food was, I thought, our shared language. I would spend hours cooking for him, finding joy in feeding the man I loved. He would call me his goddess, his earth mother. He said he loved that I was real and soft in a world of sharp, angular girls. I was so in love, so desperate to be loved, that I didn't recognize his words for what they were. A way of putting me in a box, a way of defining me in relation to him. I was the soft, earthy background against which his sharp, ambitious light could shine all the brighter. My weight was a part of this identity. I was the cozy girlfriend. My body, a result of a lifetime of finding comfort and joy in food, was something he claimed to adore. I believed him. I didn't see that his adoration was a form of ownership, a celebration of a flaw that he believed made me dependent on his love, a love I should be grateful for. And now, for my supporter, the person who unknowingly modeled the kind of love that would one day save me. My older sister, Maya. Maya was not like me. She was practical, no nonsense, and had married her high school sweetheart, a kind, steady, and utterly normal man named Tom. Their life was not a grand dramatic romance. It was a quiet, beautiful partnership. I remember one time, I was at their house for dinner, complaining about a small, passive-aggressive comment Ethan had made about a second helping of dessert I had taken. "He just worries about my health," I said, defending him, as I always did. Maya, who was clearing the plates, just stopped and looked at me. She glanced over at Tom, who was happily finishing off the last slice of her apple pie. He caught her eye and gave her a wink, his mouth full. A small, silent, and completely perfect moment of shared, unconditional love passed between them. She turned back to me, her expression soft but serious. "Grace," she said, her voice gentle. "Love isn't supposed to be a project. It's not about one person trying to fix the other. Tom doesn't love me because I'm perfect. He loves me because I'm me, and he trusts me to take care of my own health, my own body. That's what real partnership looks like. Don't ever settle for less than that." Her words were a small, quiet truth that I wasn't ready to hear. I brushed them off, convinced that my passionate, dramatic love with Ethan was more real than her comfortable, boring marriage. I didn't understand then that what she had was not boring. It was safe. It was real. And it was a seed of what was possible, a seed that would lie dormant in my heart for years. The first cracks in my idyllic life with Ethan began to appear after we graduated and moved to the city for his first high-powered law firm job. Suddenly, my Earth Mother vibe was no longer a charming asset. It was a social liability. Our world was no longer cozy apartments and cheap wine. It was sleek corporate mixes, networking events, and dinner parties with his thin, ambitious colleagues and their equally thin, perfect wives. Ethan's love for my body began to curdle into a constant, low-grade anxiety. The playful teases became sharp-edged jokes. "Whoa, easy there, killer," he'd say, laughing a little too loudly if I reached for a bread roll at a work dinner. He'd start helpfully ordering for me at restaurants, choosing the grilled salmon salad instead of the pasta I was craving. "Just looking out for you, babe," he'd whisper, squeezing my hand, the gesture feeling less like affection and more like a warning. I was no longer his goddess. I was his problem to be managed. He was starting to see me through the eyes of his new judgmental world, and he was beginning to realize that I didn't fit. My soft, comfortable body, the one he had once claimed to adore, was now an embarrassment, a reflection of a life he was trying to leave behind. I tried to change. I tried to shrink myself, to make myself smaller, harder, more acceptable. I went on diets. I joined a gym, but my heart wasn't in it. I was trying to contort my body into a shape that would earn back his love, a love I was beginning to realize I had never truly had in the first place. The fairy tale was turning into a horror story, and I was about to be cast as the monster. I was about to be told not just that I wasn't the right fit for his new life, but that I was fundamentally unworthy of any life that involved being loved. The final year of my 5-year relationship with Ethan was a slow, agonizing descent into a special kind of hell. It was the hell of being in a relationship with someone who is actively falling out of love with your physical being. The foundation of our life together, what I had mistaken for love, was actually just a temporary infatuation with a fantasy version of me, the quirky, unconventional Earth goddess. But now that he was in the real world, the world of corporate law and sharp-edged ambition, he had no more use for a goddess of soft curves and comfort. He wanted a goddess of the gym, a goddess with a thigh gap. His attempts to fix me became more overt, more desperate. He would leave fitness magazines open on the coffee table, their covers adorned with impossibly toned women. He bought me a membership to a high-end, exclusive gym, the kind where women wore matching designer workout sets and didn't seem to sweat. He framed it as a gift. For us, he said, so we can be one of those healthy, active couples. But it felt like a punishment, an assignment I was failing. I would go to that gym and feel like an alien on a hostile planet. I would get on the treadmill in my old baggy t-shirt, surrounded by a sea of hard bodies, and I would feel the weight of their judgment, their pity, their dismissal. It was the high school cafeteria all over again, but now I was paying $150 a month for the privilege of being miserable. Our home, once a sanctuary of warmth and delicious smells, became a sterile, joyless space. He insisted we hire a meal delivery service that specialized in low-carb, paleo, portion-controlled meals. Every night, we would sit down to a sad, lukewarm box of grilled chicken and steamed broccoli. He would eat his with a grim, determined satisfaction, while I would push the food around my plate, my heart aching for the simple, joyful pleasure of a bowl of pasta I had made with my own hand. My passion for cooking, the very heart of my nurturing soul, was being systematically starved to death. The intimacy between us, once so easy and affectionate, became strained and then almost non-existent. His touch, when it came, felt different. It felt hesitant, clinical, as if he were trying to avoid the parts of me he now found so offensive. He no longer pulled me into spontaneous hugs. He no longer wrapped his arms around my soft waist while I was at the stove, because I was never at the stove anymore. I felt like I was living with a roommate, a disapproving roommate who was quietly tallying up all my flaws. I was shrinking both literally and figuratively. I lost some weight, but I also lost my laugh, my creativity, my spark. I was becoming a ghost in my own life, a pale, sad imitation of the vibrant, joyful woman I had once been. And the worst part? It still wasn't enough for him. The final, catastrophic implosion, the night the curse was cast, was not a dramatic, fiery explosion. It was a quiet, cold, and utterly devastating conversation. In the sterile silence of our perfectly clean, perfectly unhappy apartment. It was a Tuesday night. I had just come home from another soul-crushing hour at the gym. I was tired, I was hungry, and I was deeply, profoundly sad. Ethan was sitting on the couch, not looking at his phone, not watching TV, just staring into space, a strange, resolute look on his face. The air in the room was thick with a tension so heavy, it felt hard to breathe. "We need to talk," he said, his voice flat, devoid of any emotion. My heart, which had been in a constant state of low-grade anxiety for a year, suddenly plummeted into my stomach. I knew, with a sickening certainty, what was coming. I sat down on the armchair opposite him, a chasm of empty space between us. "Okay," I whispered. He took a deep breath. The kind of breath a person takes before they are about to deliver a fatal blow. He couldn't look at me. He fixed his gaze on a piece of abstract art on the wall behind me, a painting that I had made, a painting that was once full of joy, but now just looked like a chaotic mess of sad colors. "This isn't working, Grace," he said, his voice a low, steady monotone. I've been trying. We've been trying. But it's not working. What isn't working? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I just wanted to hear him say it. I wanted to force him to be honest, for once. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were cold and distant. They were the eyes of a stranger, the eyes of a lawyer making a closing argument. Us, he said. This relationship, we're on two completely different paths. I'm building a career, a future, and you're not. The words were a slap in the face. I had supported him through law school, through the bar exam, through the grueling first years at his firm. I had built the home that had been his sanctuary. I had fed him and nurtured him and loved him. And now he was telling me I was not on his path. I need a partner, Grace, he continued, his voice gaining a cruel, self-righteous momentum. I need a partner who inspires me, who pushes me, someone who is my equal, someone I can be proud to have on my arm at a firm dinner, someone who reflects the life I am trying to build, someone who is thin, I thought, the unspoken words screaming in my head. I'm not that person for you, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Is that what you're saying? He let out a short, sharp, humorless laugh. Isn't it obvious? He said, his eyes finally raking over my body with a look of open, undisguised disappointment. A look that said, after all my hard work, this is still what I'm left with. I love you, Grace, he said, and the words were the cruelest part of it all, because I knew he believed them, in his own twisted, pathetic way. I will always love the girl I met in college, the sweet, creative earth goddess. But that girl isn't who I need anymore. I need more. You mean you need less, I whispered, the pain a sharp, physical ache in my chest. Less of me. And then he stood up and began to pace, the lawyer making his final, irrefutable points. He was no longer just breaking up with me. He was passing a life sentence. It's not just about us, he said, his voice taking on a tone of condescending, pitying wisdom, as if he were explaining a difficult but necessary truth to a child. This is about you, Grace, your future. I'm worried about you. You're a beautiful, wonderful person on the inside. But the world, the real world, is a superficial place. It's not fair, but it's the truth. And this, he gestured vaguely, disgustingly, at my body. This is going to hold you back. It already is. He stopped pacing and stood in front of me, a grim, prophetic look on his handsome face. And then he said the words that would become my curse, the words that were designed not just to end our relationship, but to destroy any hope I might ever have of finding another. I'm doing you a favor, Grace, he said, his voice dropping to a low, serious, and utterly devastating whisper. Because I'm telling you the truth that no one else has the guts to say. No man, no real, successful, ambitious man will ever truly love a fat girl. They might sleep with you. They might even like you. But they will never be proud of you. They will never choose you. You will always be a secret, a placeholder, a before picture. Your body is a life sentence of being alone. And the sooner you accept that, the less you will be hurt in the future. The curse was cast. It was not an insult. It was a prophecy, delivered by the man I had loved and trusted for 5 years. He had taken my deepest, most secret fear. The fear of being unlovable, of being alone forever, and he had spoken it into existence, giving it the full weight of his authority, the full power of our shared history. I just sat there, my body frozen, my mind a screaming, white-hot void. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. He had not just broken my heart. He had taken a scalpel and surgically removed any hope for a future that involved love, partnership, or happiness. He had sentenced me to a lifetime of solitude, and he had done it, in his own twisted mind, as an act of kindness. He took my silence as agreement. I'll pack a bag and go to a hotel, he said, his voice returning to a practical, emotionless tone. "We can sort out the rest of the apartment later. I'll be fair." He walked into the bedroom, and I heard the sound of him opening drawers, of a suitcase being zipped. I was a statue, a monument to my own unlovable nature. When he walked out, bag in hand, he paused at the door. "I really am sorry, Grace," he said. And then he was gone. The silence he left behind was not empty. It was filled with the echoing, malevolent power of his words. "No man will ever truly love a fat girl. A life sentence of being alone." I looked around the apartment, our apartment, filled with my art, with the ghosts of our shared meals, with the 5 years of my life I had poured into him. And I saw it all through the lens of his curse. It was the sad, cluttered dinning of a woman who was destined to be alone forever. And in that moment, in the deepest, most broken part of my soul, I believed him. I believed him completely. The days following Ethan's departure were not days at all. They were a single, unbroken, gray expanse of time. I didn't go to work. I didn't answer my phone. I didn't eat. I just existed, a ghost haunting the beautiful apartment that now felt like a mausoleum. I would sit for hours on the couch, staring at the wall, Ethan's curse playing on a continuous tormenting loop in my head. No man will ever truly love a fat girl. A life sentence of being alone. His words had become my reality. I looked at my own reflection with his eyes, with his disgust. I saw a monster. A creature whose body was a fortress designed to repel love. The pain was so profound, so absolute, that it was beyond tears. It was a state of complete and utter soul death. I had been sentenced, and I was passively serving my time. After 3 days of this, my sister Maya, having received a frantic call from my boss, used her spare key and let herself into my apartment. She found me on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring into nothingness. She didn't try to cheer me up. She didn't offer platitudes. She just sat down on the floor in front of me, her face a mask of fierce, protective love and pure, unadulterated rage. "He's a fool, Grace," she said, her voice a low, angry growl. "He's a weak, pathetic, and deeply stupid boy who was never, not for 1 second, worthy of you." I just shook my head, a single silent tear finally tracing a path down my cheek. "He was right, Maya," I whispered, my voice a dry, unused rasp. "He was right about me." And that's when my practical, no-nonsense sister did something that shocked me. She reached out and slapped my knee. Not hard, but with a sharp, stinging thwack that jolted me out of my stupor. "Don't you dare," she said, her eyes blazing. "Don't you dare let that narcissistic child's pathetic excuse for his own cowardice become your truth. He didn't deliver a prophecy, Grace. He confessed to his own inadequacy. He is incapable of real love, so he has tried to convince you that you are incapable of being loved. Do you see the difference?" I stared at her, her words a tiny, flickering candle in the vast, echoing darkness of my despair. "You are not going to sit here and let his poison rot you from the inside out," she declared, her voice a command. "Get up, take a shower, pack a bag. You're coming to stay with me and Tom." That was my awakening. It wasn't a sudden, fiery explosion of my own making. It was a lifeline thrown to me by the one person in the world who loved me unconditionally. It was the beginning of a long, slow rescue mission for my own soul. My counterattack was not a declaration of war on Ethan. He was irrelevant. My war was against the curse he had planted in my heart. My goal was not to get revenge. My goal was to prove him wrong, not to him, but to myself. I had to find a way to believe, in the deepest part of my being, that I was worthy of love. The battle had 2 fronts, and they were both internal. Front 1, the exorcism. I had to actively, consciously fight his voice in my head every single day. Front 2, the reconstruction. I had to build a life for myself, a life that was so full of its own joy, its own beauty, its own worth, that it didn't need a man's love to be complete. The first few months, living in the noisy, warm, chaotic embrace of my sister's home, were about survival. Maya and her husband Tom didn't try to fix me. They just included me. They made me a part of their beautiful, boring, ordinary life. They dragged me on family walks with their dog. They made me help cook dinner. They let me cry when I needed to, but they refused to let me wallow. Tom, my kind, steady brother-in-law, was a revelation. I watched the way he looked at my sister. He looked at her with a deep, quiet, and utterly uncomplicated adoration. He loved her when she was cranky in the morning. He loved her when she was stressed from work. He loved her without condition. He wasn't trying to change her. He was just her partner. Their love was not a project, it was a partnership. Watching them was a slow, steady, and powerful antidote to the poison in my veins. It was a daily living proof that the kind of love Ethan had told me was impossible actually existed. The exorcism of Ethan's voice was the hardest work of my life. I started going to therapy. My therapist gave me a name for his curse. It was an emotional echo, a negative cognitive loop, and she gave me a weapon to fight it with, my own voice. I started a new journal, and every time his words would surface in my mind, "No man will ever love you. You're destined to be alone," I would write them down. And then, underneath them, I would write a counter-argument. I would write, "That is Ethan's opinion, born of his own shallowness. It is not a fact." I would write, "My sister is loved. Millions of women who look like me are loved. His curse is a lie." I was literally, page by page, rewriting the narrative of my own heart. The second front, the reconstruction of my life, began with a single, terrifying step. I had to get out of my sister's house. I had to learn to be alone without being lonely. I quit my old job, the one that was tied to my old life with Ethan. I took my small savings, and I did something that the old Grace would have never dreamed of. I rented a tiny, rustic cabin in the mountains, a few hours from the city. I decided to spend 6 months in solitude, to figure out who I was when I wasn't in a relationship. The cabin was my crucible. It was tiny, it was remote, and it was often terrifyingly quiet. The first few weeks were an agony of loneliness. The silence was deafening, and it was filled with the ghosts of my past. There were so many times I almost packed up my car and fled back to the safety of my sister's home. But I had made a promise to myself. My therapy was my journal. My gym was the mountain outside my door. Every single day, I forced myself to go for a hike. At first, it was torture. My body, which had been softened by years of a sedentary, comfortable life, protested every step. I was out of breath. My muscles ached. I felt clumsy and slow. But I kept going. And slowly, day by day, something miraculous began to happen. I started to get stronger. I could go a little farther each day. I started to notice things other than my own pain. I noticed the way the light filtered through the trees, the smell of the damp earth after it rained, the sound of a bird calling in the distance. I was connecting with something bigger than myself, something that did not judge me for the size of my body. The mountain didn't care if I was fat or thin. It only cared if I had the strength to climb it. My body, the source of my deepest shame, was becoming the source of my greatest pride. I was still fat. The weight was coming off. But that wasn't the point. The point was that this body, this strong, powerful, fat body, could carry me to the top of a mountain. It could endure. It could achieve. I started to look at my strong legs, my powerful lungs, with a sense of awe and gratitude. I was not at war with my body anymore. We were a team. In the quiet evenings in the cabin, I started to create again. I had brought my art supplies, and I started to paint. But I wasn't painting the sad, abstract expressions of my heartbreak anymore. I was painting the world around me. The mountains, the trees, the wildflowers. My art was no longer about my pain. It was about the beauty I was discovering, both in the world and in myself. The 6 months in the cabin changed me in a way that no diet or gym ever could have. I had faced my greatest fear, the fear of being alone. And I had discovered that I was actually pretty good company. I had built a life, a quiet, simple, beautiful life that was entirely my own. I had learned to be my own partner. When I came back to the city, I was a different woman. I was still fat, but I carried myself differently. I was quieter, but my silence was no longer born of fear. It was born of a deep, calm, and unshakable self-possession. I got a new job, a graphic design position at a small, nature-focused nonprofit. The pay was less, but the work had a soul. I started hiking with local groups on the weekends. I was building a new community, a community based on shared passions, not on superficial appearances. I even started dating again. It was terrifying. The first few dates were awkward disasters. Ethan's curse would echo in my ears, telling me that this was pointless, that I was just going to be rejected again. But I kept trying. I was practicing the art of being vulnerable, of showing up as my authentic self and letting the chips fall where they may. And then, one day, on a particularly muddy and difficult group hike, I met him. His name was Ben, and he was not my type. At all. He wasn't the handsome, polished, ambitious alpha male I had always thought I was supposed to be with. He was a high school science teacher. He was tall and a little bit goofy, with a kind, crinkling smile and a beard that was perpetually a little bit messy. He had a laugh that was loud and genuine, and his hiking boots were caked with the mud of 100 different trails. We met when I stumbled and fell spectacularly on a slippery patch of trail. I was embarrassed, my old insecurities flaring up, expecting a snicker or a pitying look. Instead, he just offered a hand, pulled me up with a surprising strength, and then immediately started geeking out about the unique properties of the mica schist rock that I had tripped on. He wasn't looking at my body, he was looking at the ground, at the world with a sense of wonder that was utterly captivating. Our first date wasn't a fancy, judgmental dinner. It was a walk through a botanical garden. We talked for hours, not about our careers or our 5-year plans, but about our passions. I told him about my art, about my love for the mountains. He told me about his love for botany, about the joy he found in showing a teenager the magic of photosynthesis for the first time. He was so completely, unapologetically himself that it gave me the courage to be myself too. I was terrified. Ethan's curse was a constant, screaming ghost in my head. He's just being nice. He'll never be proud of you. He'll never choose you. Every time he'd text me to say he was thinking of me, the ghost would whisper, "It's a lie." Every time he'd compliment my artwork, the ghost would hiss, "But he's still looking at your body." The real test came a few weeks into our relationship. I had invited him to my apartment for the first time, and I had cooked for him. It was a huge, terrifyingly vulnerable act. I hadn't cooked for a man since Ethan. I made my grandmother's braised brisket, a rich, fragrant, and deeply comforting dish that was a piece of my soul on a plate. I watched him as he took the first bite, my heart in my throat, half expecting to see that look of disgust on his face. He chewed slowly, his eyes closed, and then he opened them, looked directly at me, and his face was filled with a look of such pure, unadulterated awe and happiness that it was like the sun coming out from behind the clouds. "Grace," he said, his voice a low, reverent whisper, This is the most amazing thing I have ever eaten." He didn't say, "Is this healthy?" He didn't say, "Just a small portion for me." He just celebrated my gift, my passion, with a joy that was so pure, so unconditional, it felt like a healing balm on my wounded soul. But the ghost was still there. A few months later, as things were getting more serious, I knew I had to face it. I had to tell him. I sat him down on my couch, my hands trembling, and I told him the whole story. I told him about Ethan, about the diets, about the years of feeling like a project, and I told him the curse. I told him the exact words. No man will ever truly love a fat girl. You will be a life sentence of being alone. I told him, my voice cracking, that a part of me was still terrified that he would one day wake up and realize that Ethan was right. He just listened, his kind, intelligent eyes never leaving my face. When I was done, a mess of tears and snot and vulnerability, he didn't say anything for a long moment. He just reached out, cupped my face in his big, warm hands, and wiped away my tears with his thumbs. Ethan, he said finally, his voice a low, steady rumble of pure, protective fury, is a fool. He is a weak, insecure boy who tried to blame his own inadequacy on you. The idea that you are unlovable is the most insane, ridiculous, and frankly, stupid thing I have ever heard in my entire life. He pulled me into his arms, a hug so strong, so safe, so completely enveloping that it felt like coming home. Grace, he whispered into my hair, I don't love you in spite of your body. I love your body. I love it because it is strong and soft, and it is the beautiful, miraculous vessel that carries the person I am so ridiculously in love with. I am not settling for you. I am the luckiest man in the world that you chose me. One. And in that moment, in the safety of his arms, the curse broke. His love, so simple, so direct, so unconditional, was the truth that finally silenced the lie. A year later, we were married. A small, simple, beautiful ceremony in the mountains, surrounded by our family and our closest friends. My sister Maya was my maid of honor, her face shining with a joy that said, I told you so. We wrote our own vows. His were about the beauty of the natural world, and how I was his most beautiful discovery. Mine were about the safety of finding a home in another person's heart. The final, unbelievable, full-circle confrontation with Ethan happened last month. My sister was hosting a big, chaotic backyard barbecue for her husband Tom's 40th birthday. It was a beautiful summer day, the yard filled with friends, family, and the happy screams of children. Ben and I were manning the grill, a comfortable practice team. I was laughing at a terrible joke he had just told, my face smeared with a little bit of barbecue sauce. And then I saw him. Ethan was standing by the back gate, looking lost and out of place. He had come with a mutual friend from our college days. He looked diminished. The sharp, ambitious, golden boy glow was gone. He was still handsome, but there was a hollowness in his eyes, a bitterness around his mouth. He looked like a man who was deeply, profoundly unhappy. Our eyes met across the yard, and I saw a flicker of shock, of recognition, of something that looked a lot like regret. The curse giver was here, in my new, happy, love-filled world. And I felt nothing. No fear. No anger. Just a distant clinical pity. He started to walk towards me, a strained, awkward smile on his face. The old Grace would have panicked, would have run. But I was not the old Grace. I just stood my ground, my hand resting on my husband's back. Grace, he said, his voice a little too loud. Wow. It's been a long time. You look great. It was the same empty compliment he had always used, the one that was really a comment on my weight. I'm happy, Ethan, I said, and the simple truth of the words was the most powerful response I could have possibly given. And then it happened. The moment that was the final, beautiful nail in the coffin of his curse. Ben, who had his back to Ethan while flipping burgers, turned around. He didn't even notice Ethan at first. He just saw me. He saw the smudge of barbecue sauce on my cheek. He smiled, a slow, warm, and utterly adoring smile. He reached out with his thumb and gently wiped the sauce away. Then, without even thinking, he leaned in and gave me a soft, lingering kiss, right there in front of everyone. You're a mess, he whispered, his eyes full of nothing but love. "And you are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." It was a small, quiet, intimate moment, a moment of ordinary, married love. But in the context of our audience of one, it was a nuclear explosion. I looked over Ben's shoulder, and I saw Ethan's face. And it was a mask of pure, stunned, hollow-eyed disbelief. He had just witnessed in real time the complete and utter obliteration of his own prophecy. He had just seen a man, a good man, look at the fat girl, in all her messy, imperfect glory, and call her beautiful, with a sincerity that was as bright and undeniable as the summer sun. He just stared, his mouth slightly open. He looked from my husband's adoring face to my own peaceful, happy one, and he saw a world, a love, a happiness that he had declared impossible. He saw a world that he was not, and would never be, a part of. He didn't say another word. He just gave a small, jerky nod, turned, and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. A ghost, finally, blessedly, exorcised. I turned back to my husband, my heart so full of love and gratitude I thought it might burst. The curse was broken. Not because I had lost weight, not because I had become successful, but because I had finally allowed myself to believe that I was worthy of a love that was real. Being fat is not a sin. Believing that you are unlovable is. The real sin is letting the words of a small, broken person become the blueprint for your own beautiful, magnificent heart. To anyone watching, to anyone who is living under the shadow of a curse someone else has placed on you, listen to me. Their words are not a prophecy. They are a confession of their own limitations. Your job is not to prove them wrong to them. Your job is to build a life so full of your own truth, your own joy, and your own love, that their curse has no oxygen to survive. And one day you will be standing in the middle of your beautiful life, and you will realize that the ghost is gone, and that you have been free all along. I never heard from Ethan again after that party. His presence was the last quiet little aftershock of an earthquake that had happened years ago. It didn't shake my foundation. It just proved how strong my new foundation truly is. He was a ghost from a past that no longer has any power over me. My curse wasn't broken in that moment. That moment was just the beautiful, undeniable proof that the curse had been broken long ago. My life now is a testament to the quiet, steady power of self-love. Ben and I are living our beautiful, boring, ordinary life. We hike, we cook, we adopted a goofy golden retriever who sheds on everything. My art is thriving. I have a small, successful online business selling prints of my landscape paintings, and I teach a local art class for kids on the weekend. My life is not a grand, dramatic fairy tale. It's something better. It's real. And my body? It's still a fat body. Some days I love it. Some days I'm still learning to. But it is no longer a source of shame. It's the body that climbs mountains. It's the body that my husband adores. It's the body that houses a soul that is finally at peace. Sharing this story with you all, the story of the curse, is one of the most vulnerable things I have ever done. For years I carried those words, "No man will ever truly love a fat girl," like a secret, shameful poison in my heart. But speaking them out loud, here, in this incredible community, is the final act of drawing that poison out. You all, by listening with such compassion, by sharing your own stories of breaking curses, you help me turn my deepest wound into our collective healing. And that is why I need you to add your voice to this powerful counterspell. If this story of learning to believe in your own worthiness resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And please, don't forget to hit that notification bell, because our community is a place where we constantly prove the doubters wrong. Every subscription is a declaration that we are all worthy of love. Now, it's your turn. This is the most important part. I want you to go to the comments and tell me about a curse that was placed on you. What was a lie that someone told you about yourself that you are working to unlearn? Share your story of breaking your own curse. I promise you with all my heart, I will read every single one. Your stories are the proof that we are not defined by the limitations of those who could not love us. Thank you for being here, for your open hearts, for your incredible strength. Remember, you are not the curse that was placed upon you. You are the magic that breaks it. Love you all, your grace. See you in the next story.